The information, investment views, and comments in this webcast are for general information purposes only. This podcast should not be used as a basis to buy or sell shares. The opinions and comments expressed within are made with the belief that the information is correct at the time of publication is subject to change as new information arises. The webcast will not accept responsibility for decisions made with the information contained within. The host is a shareholder in Greatland Gold.
Hello and welcome to this GGP Helps, the board interviews. My name's Liam and today I'm pleased to be presenting another quarterly catch-up for you for Q4 2022. And joining me from Greatland Board is Shaun, Managing Director. Welcome back to the show, Shaun.
Hi, Liam. Thanks very much and good to catch up again.
Today's a little different because for the first time we're trialling this with a live audience who'll be submitting questions during the show. Hopefully this will work out as planned, be a raving success, and we can open it up to a wider audience throughout the year. As always, I like to lead with an icebreaker or two, and today's in two parts. The first is really easy. It probably won't make it to air, but to earn me a brownie point and the opportunity to win a bet. The second might need a moment to think about. So, thanks to a very quiet day over the festive break and a bunch of random shareholders with very little going on, I've been challenged to see if I can get you to say the word splendid. So, Shaun, can you?
I think splendid is in my repertoire, so I think you will come across that. I think it forms the odd tweet with me. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Strudel, you owe me a box of Freddos, so I'll donate those to the food bank. Thank you. Moving swiftly on, I threw this icebreaker to the audience before we went on air, and they voted for me to lead with. So, Shaun, how soon did Sherry mention the word hoist during the most recent barbecue?
Look, Sherry has, as you know, been appointed the CEO of Newcrest. I have some existing relationship with her, and indeed do intend to continue to kind of meet and catch up. So yeah, we really appreciate that we have that relationship with Newcrest and continuing that relationship that we formed with Sandeep at the managing director level.
Thank you. Okay, so for those who do not know and catching the quarterly catch up for the first time, Greatland Gold is a leading mining development and exploration company focused on precious and base metals. The company's flagship asset is the world-class Havieron gold copper deposit in the Paterson region of Western Australia, discovered by Greatland and presently under development in joint venture with Newcrest Mining. There's a bit less for us to get through for the Q4 catch-up with the festive season and us being a little out of sync with the quarters. But since we last spoke, Shaun, we've sold our Tasmanian assets to Flynn Gold Limited. Could you elaborate on this deal for us, please?
Yeah, look, I think that worked really well for us. The Tasmanian assets just couldn't compete for exploration budget against the other assets that we have, particularly in the Paterson. And when we think about the scale of Havieron, we didn't see the scale or the order of magnitude opportunity in Tasmania to allocate resources to. So really what we thought, they could be held with someone more focused on Tasmanian exploration, which Finn is. And with Flynn kind of taking over that, it allows us to focus on our preferred exploration licenses, whilst we have kept an ongoing exposure to those assets through an equity and some milestone payments. And because we like the assets, particularly Fire Tower, where there's existing mineralization encountered. Similar, Warrantina is a little bit more early in its development, but we like the geology. So we love the blend there of finding someone that we trusted both socially and technically, but also and had confidence could optimize that asset, but that we had the opportunity to have an ongoing exposure to them. So we think it's a real win-win for both sets of shareholders.
We also had both Mark Barnaby and Elizabeth Gaines join the board. Whilst we spoke about them rather in depth last time, I wondered, for anyone who's new, could you please give a quick overview of who they are? And for a follow-up, have you managed to meet up around the table this year yet?
Yes. So look, the board updates that we did back, I think it was around September, October that we announced it, with Jimmy Wilson joining with a BHP pedigree and as an executive. He really hit the ground running here from day one and has spent a lot of time in the office and particularly with the technical team, which I think has been tremendous. Mark and Elizabeth and I have spent a lot of time over the back half of this year, and Mark had given me a great deal of guidance and somewhat acted as a mentor for me over the past 12, 18 months. So he's kind of very familiar and with the Greatland story. But just for everyone's knowledge, so Elizabeth Gaines has joined her. She's just stepped down as managing director of $50 billion Fortescue Metals, a hugely successful organisation that really has become incredibly successful in iron ore, and she was leading that organisation. And then we've had Mark Barnabar join as well. As Elizabeth joined as deputy chair, Mark is joining as chairman, or has joined as chairman, and his background is global head of resources with Macquarie Bank. Also has a role as deputy chairman with that same Fortescue Mining, and sits on the Reserve Bank of Australia board, much like the Bank of England. So a couple of incredibly high profile and well respected people have joined the board, augmenting the team we already had. And I think we're extremely lucky to have one of the best, strongest boards in mining, certainly here in Australia.
Thank you. The only thing else has happened really since we spoke in early November is that there's been some director dealings. Whilst it's nice to see, it does raise that age-old question that I'm sure you've had enough of me asking. Has your close period ended yet?
Look, it ebbs and flows, and there's a statutory one 30 days before the announcement of financial statements. So it does ebb and flow. Obviously, those directors traded during an open period. And look, they exercised some options that they've been held for a long time, dealt with the exercise price and taxes, but those directors increased their shareholding. And what was really pleasing about it is we were able to cross that stock to an institutional shareholder up in London. And as I think you've heard me say before, part of what I've tried to spend a lot of time, energy, and effort to achieve is bringing that institutional demand to augment the shareholder base that we already have marvelously successfully have in the retail sector, but try to get the best of both worlds. So I was really pleased to see the benefits of that institutional interest in the stock coming through when a line was available.
That's great. Thank you. Our audience has been slowly adding questions during the chat. So let's have a quick look at those now. Have you managed to connect with Sherry yet? And now that Sandeep has decided to retire gracefully, and if so, what's her impressions of Havieron and the JV?
So yes, I have. I actually, Sherry was originally spent some time in Perth, Western Australia, so we knew each other. I don't want to overstate that relationship, but during that time, I'd met with her during her period as CFO of Newcrest, and yes, we continue to connect. I think, as is the Newcrest organisation, Sherry thinks very highly of the Havieron and indeed Telfer platform. I think Newcrest has a number of really strong assets, and I think they continue to view Havieron as a wonderful element of that portfolio.
Thank you. Next question up is, do the brokers know what is coming in an RNS ahead of time? Our friends at Berenberg seem to release their updates the day before the news, but never after without any explanation or rationale. I appreciate we've covered this a few times, but the questions come in.
No, they get there early in the morning and probably have their announcements ready to go. But the RNS release should be consistent, although there are kind of wall-cross discussions that can happen. But the Berenberg broking arm is very much separate, and typically they would receive the RNS around the same time as the rest of the market. But we'll often have chats with them, in real time as that's lodged. so that they can add it to their daily, their morning notes and update their research in a timely manner.
Okay, thank you. This one has quite a few people have asked this one, and so it's please can you provide an update with the AXS cross listing? Is it still your intention to proceed with a compliance listing, or will you be carrying out an IPO?
Look, well, an IPO and a compliance listing, I think is one and the same, but where we're trying to draw the distinction there is that presently we're not resolved to raise equity. We really just want to get the platform set. So that is our intent. Our intent is to try to achieve that IPO listing in the first half of this year. A well-run IPO takes 3 to 4 months. We have kind of started walking down that path, but I think previously I might have guided to around April. I think that's still ballpark when I'd say, but really we need to get some regulatory input before we start giving any genuine guidance on time frame.
That's fair enough. With no obvious signs of ore coming from another source, do you think it'd be prudent to tap into Havieron on another mining front quicker than planned? I think that, sorry, just before you do that, I think that's in relation to the fact that Telfer has got 2 massive trains, but we're only going to be sending a very small amount over the next few years to it.
Yeah, well, I think this fits in perhaps to the part of the narrative around the present quarterly, which is the success we're seeing in Eastern Brescia. And Liam, you and I have just spoken today about why we're so excited about that Eastern Brescia. Is it's grown hugely. It's a multiple of what it was 12 months ago. But not only has it grown in size, but it's probably doubled in grade. And that makes it a really attractive mining area. And I think when you think about Havieron and a 3 million tonne per annum Havieron in the context of having a train B at Telfer, which is a 10 million tonne train dedicated to Havieron, there's clearly some attraction to contemplating whether you can fill more or indeed all of that mill and take Havieron to a 10 million tonne per annum operation. Now, on that single decline sloth space, I think 3 million tonnes is a really full target. And I think if we achieve that, that would be a really great credit to the operational team and the efficiency of that decline management. I think there is a broader opportunity there, which is an ongoing process to understand. But then as a secondary mining front, to open up, say, that Eastern Brescia on more of a block mining basis or a cave, a bulk mining basis, be that a sub-level or a block cave. And presumably, at least your starting point would be to fill the mill. So you try to take 6-7 million tonnes out of that second mining zone and run that mill as efficiently as possible. I think that is an ongoing process, but that's certainly how we think we'd love to develop Havieron in time. And I have previously spoken to why do I think Eastern Brescia is the next place to go in the mine, partly because of that growth and that improved grade, but also it kind of sits towards the bottom of the ore body. If you are doing a block cave, which is a bottom-up mining methodology, it'd be ideal to put that infrastructure down at the bottom of the mine up through that Eastern Brescia, and at some later point you could reuse that infrastructure to tackle the Northern Brescia, again in a bulk zonation. So I think that is the really big picture opportunity at Havieron. But for now, we are very focused on this South-East Crescent, the sub-level open stoping, and that is the immediate focus of the study. That is the immediate focus of the team to get that cash flow. And then once you've got that free cash flow, these future developments or upsizing of the mine can be self-funded.
That's a brilliant answer. Thank you very much. Is there any... Wait for it to load. Is there any timeline on submission of the Stage 2 mining plan to the EPA, which NCM said would be released in early 2023?
Yeah, look, I think we've previously guided that it would be early this calendar year, so certainly in the March quarter. I've got to be measured what I said because we haven't announced anything as yet. But I think your expectation should be that we've continued to advance that, and that that's going to happen early in this quarter.
Fantastic. Thank you. Will further exploration drilling be limited now until the underground drilling platforms are in place? And actually, I've noted that we're going down to 3 drill rigs for the next 3 months for the wet season.
So well, again, just to clarify that. So actually, as we did last year, we demobilized all the rigs from Havieron over that summer, kind of late December, early January period. Now, it's multifactorial why we do that. Part of it is just to give some people who have spent a lot of time in a remote area, kind of flying in and out, a little bit of additional time with their families, but also the rigs themselves need maintenance. So it is quite an efficient time just to demo. We're remobilizing initially 3 rigs, which I believe are on site for February to recommence that drilling campaign. And I think what you're going to see different in calendar year 23, as opposed to what you saw 22, is we're going to be more focusing on drilling out that South-East Crescent. Last year, we were trying to just understand that eastern breccia, understand the system a little bit more. Now we're going to kind of refocus around that South-East Crescent, which should be really good. And of course, we really love growing and understanding more that South-East Crescent, which will be our first mining area, and of course is tremendous grade.
Brilliant, thank you. As we're now into 2023 and we start to move forward with possible other avenues of exploration, any update on how Ernest Giles and the access to negotiations are proceeding?
Yeah, so look, I think in terms of that broader exploration portfolio, I'll come to Ernest Giles, but there's a couple of things to unpack there. Firstly, we're also looking at some targets, additional targets on that Havieron lease. So there's no better place to look for gold and copper than where it's already been found. And I'd use that same thing to talk about, or that same extension of logic into Scallywag and indeed Jury. This is all along strike through that Paterson. We like that. We continue to to generate targets and have targets we still haven't drilled. And of course, every time we do some exploration there, I think I've explained before, our philosophy is not to pattern drill. We'll do 1 or 2 drills, understand the stratigraphy, compare it to our model, recalibrate and come back. So it's a very technically and efficient mining approach to exploration. We're then excited about the exploration portfolio outside of Havieron or outside of the Paterson. Of course, we've talked about partnering on those Tasmanian and letting someone else manage those projects. But I think for us, Ernest Giles that you mentioned is the jewel in the crown. We're super excited about getting there. We are really respectful of our the Indigenous owners there and people. So look, we want to work with them cooperatively. We've done it to date. We have a good relationship. We have had some communication about when the next meeting is, and we like to think we're really close for our part. So I remain optimistic, positive, expectant that we will be able to drill during the course of calendar year 2023. That is our plan, but we cannot be definitive on that until we have the final access agreement. I think you're also going to see some activity on the ground around the other exploration assets, Panorama and Bromus during the course of 2023. We want to start walking those opportunities along as well.
I've just had one question actually flash up on my screen there about Panorama actually, with relation to the tenement is due to expire. So someone was just checking to see if we would be chasing that. But as you've just alluded to, that's something you'd like to do.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think Panorama is quite prospective for gold and nickel. So we're open to both of those there. So yeah, it is good, and indeed even another firm, a major, has come and approached us about at least understanding the data there. I think it is seen as quite a prospective area. Not sure what we'd like to do with that, because I think we're of a size now where we can stomach some of that risk and keep all the upside. But it's always nice to share technical information and have insight from large and established exploration teams. And again, I think it reflects well on our technical team. They are viewed strongly in the market. They have good connectivity with their peers, and all of that helps build into our cycle and our probability of success.
Brilliant. This next question is, Shaun had previously alluded to director buys in December. With the potential for buys to be executed in short term, why has this not happened? And can you give any update and assurance to shareholders that the new board members will be taking up positions? I don't know if you can answer that one.
Well, look, I think that is their intent. As you've probably seen previously, there's always an attraction for directors to buy shares around an equity raise and participate in that, both from a regulatory compliance and to show confidence in the stock at the time they're asking other people to put new money into the company. I think all of those things come into the equation, but certainly, a number of the directors have expressed to me an interest in acquiring some stock. I can't speak for them, but I believe that interest is ongoing.
Have you confirmed with Newcrest if they'll be changing their resource and reserve statements from February to August, as communicated by Tom Dixon, the head of investor relations?
Look, we have. So that's a good question. So look, we are currently working through the resource and reserve with them. We share the geological model, and again, I think the teams are quite close. And I think we saw technical alignment with them last year, where we really, even though we did it independently, we came out with numbers within 1% of each other. Now, I think that's just testament to the caliber of the team here, that they are every bit as good as a much larger and more resourced team in Newcrest, and I think the Newcrest team is excellent as well. So I think we do understand they've pivoted to or annual update based around the August annual report, as opposed to a separate report in February. That does put us into a position where we are thinking about whether we should go unilaterally again, or whether we should dovetail with that August. I've kind of said both to the market, as in I've said our strong preference is to remain aligned with Newcrest. However, if we felt Newcrest was unnecessarily delaying a resource update, we continue to have the courage and conviction and focus to go unilaterally. I think in this case, and again, it's nice to take us back to that Eastern Breccia. The growth in that Eastern Breccia and the technical interpretation there is actually quite exciting, and a lot's happened this year. I think there is a natural time where our team wants to continue investigating that. So whether that leads us to a place where we both converge on August, or whether we feel we should do something ahead of time. But I think what we should do is acknowledge that Newcrest is seeking to update that resource and reserve in really beautifully, consultation and lockstep with us, and we value the relationship and with Newcrest. So there is some gravitational pull towards us wanting to do that, together with Newcrest. So without being definitive, I think the probability of us updating it in August is higher than maybe what it was 2 months ago, when our expectation was still that Newcrest, all things being equal, would have a global exploration update in February. So without being definitive, I think all those factors will come into our calculation.
Thank you. I guess in some ways it's the word that popped into my mind as you was talking about that is harmony and the harmonics of it all coming together with, he says as he clicks the button. With regards to increasing production at Havieron, passing bays and decline have been the primary option. What's next on the list, and is this likely to be included in the feasibility study?
Sorry, well, just to be clear, the passing bays and stockpiles have always been part of the decline development and the decline plan. And this goes back to the optimization of the capacity of that decline. The more passing bays, the more stockpiles, the more flexibility you have around your truck movements and the efficiency of those truck movements with passing bays. So that is a focus for us. We announced that we're over 1,500 meters of decline advancement, decline development. I think people should understand that in terms of change, that is actual decline development. It's probably closer to about 1,300 meters, with the delta there being in that stockpile development and passing bays. That's always been part of the plan. It's how we get better productivity from that decline, more tons, more ounces out of the mine. So I think it's positive, and what it allows us to do is run a lower cost, more efficient Havieron.
This comes back to something we talked about last quarter. We've been noted that you've withdrawn the application that was put over on Scallywag, which was a copy of East 45 4701. Has the risk of this tenement being overturned, I think as you elaborated to, been eliminated?
Well, yeah, look, I think when we talked about that, we said it was a very, Western Australia is consistently ranked, well, I think it's presently number one in the global mining jurisdictions Fraser Index. It is consistently ranked top 5, and I think is broadly seen as as one of the premium mining jurisdictions on the planet. The part of that is the security of tenure. Now, I think I did elaborate that there was a case where someone disputed a tenement. The West Australian government immediately came out and said that what they will prioritise, regardless of how that case is ongoing tenement security of title. We were ultra conservative, but we should be ultra conservative around prize assets to put in a new overlapping application. Now, as with the passage of time, and I think also when you ask a law firm for their instinctive reaction to risk, is to be highly conservative. As people have had time to assess and understand and the government response, the view is it was always, I think I referred to it as a belts and braces approach.
Yeah.
But the view was that's no longer necessary. So yes, the advice we have is that there is sufficient certainty that a duplicate application is not warranted.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. With Elizabeth Gaines and Mark Barnaby now on our board, will Greatland and Newcrest be following FMG's approach? I've absolutely just forgotten their name. That's not good, is it? With automated mine hauling fleet at Havieron. If so, is that accounted for within the CapEx buffer?
Yeah. So look, when you asked about Mark and Elizabeth before, one of the things I didn't specifically say is have we met in person? Well, absolutely we have, and we've had everyone around the board table, and they've really hit the ground running. What I would say is, into the question around how we will optimize Havieron, is certainly the application of EVs, electric fleet, or other systems of power generation are very much part of how we're thinking about the optimization. And where EVs can perhaps save money is that there's less diesel particulates, less ventilation. If you're installing less ventilation, that's less CapEx. If you're running less ventilation or less air through your system, it saves OPEX. So there is this cost return or cost benefit analysis that you do around EV vehicles. clearly having additional expertise on the board and connectivity with Fortescue, which I think would be widely viewed as one of the global leaders in that technology. And without this turning into an ad for Fortescue, they actually bought, as I understand it, the Williams F1 racing team engineering group. And because they were doing a whole lot of work with batteries for racing and aerodynamics on vehicles and all these things, which can translate to productivity for mining fleet. That is, I think, spectacularly innovative thinking, but also gives us this, this splendid, ability to cross fertilization of technology and understanding the latest and greatest potential application. Now, that doesn't mean we have any kind of information sharing or alignment with Fortescue. We are completely separate companies, but knowing what else is going on in the marketplace, knowing where opportunities may exist, perhaps gives us a competitive advantage to be the first to be second. I'm not sure we're big enough to innovate and develop an EV fleet, but would love to be the first to be second if something was tried and tested, to say that is a great idea and it has application for us.
That's really good. And actually, what got me there was the saving of money through operation with the less requirement of air. All those fans take a lot of money, don't they, to operate? So not having those running as hard, it saves money through maintenance and everything. So it's almost like a win-win switching to an all-electric fleet sooner rather than later, I guess, as well.
Well, this is the cost benefits. You're not shifting or hauling diesel and bunkering it. They have less moving parts in the engines. No gearboxes. So there are multiple facets that go into the saving. Now, diesel engines are marvelously efficient. They've been optimized over what must be close to 100 years. That said, I think we all see the future in those kind of electric vehicles and lower carbon footprints, and that crossover point is earlier because of those ancillary savings around mine ventilation and the OPEX of delivering that and creating better environments. So it is a really interesting field, and I think Australia is incredibly fortunate to have a group like Fortescue that can put the resources into advancing that technology.
Okay, thank you. The Alpha 9 target and TAMA, what does no significant results actually mean?
Well, it means no mineralization. So if we hit gold or copper, we would be announcing that intercept. So I think again it goes back to a recalibration of what we're expecting. Sometimes we run EM and the team will assess this, but we might run electromagnetic probes down there to understand the geophysics and then recalibrate targets. But what it does mean is where there is no intercept of mineralized core, and we continue to assess those targets and recalibrate. And it's too early for me to say how we think about those targets, but that's what those statements mean.
Okay, so it's not just it's not that it should just be viewed as that's it, the target's finished, it's no good. It's just a question of actually we just need to take a little bit more time to investigate what we think is there. And
then there's a distribution curve of outcomes. Some we will say, look, we've tested it. We can. What I really like to see in our exploration, and I think is our very technical approach, is we like to explain anomalies. So why did we drill that area, and has that drill successfully explained what we were the reason why we tried to drill there? If what we found is we actually weren't exactly on the target, and we've recalibrated with more information, because you are trying to infer spacing through hundreds of meters of rock. But if we feel we've tested the target and intercepted it, and now we can explain it, and that it's the generation of the gravity signature or the magnetic signature is explained and is not mineralization, then we may walk away from that, or at least feel that we've tested it adequately. So there is a distribution curve of outcomes. I'm not saying everything remains a tier 1 target,
No.
but certainly one sparrow does not make a summer make. Much the same with drill holes.
That's great. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh over that. Suggested that there's a thought of one of the Scanvid rigs now having high downforce package on it from Williams to make it more efficient as it goes through the decline. So that's what made me laugh there.
Perhaps they'll get from one drill pad to another quicker as well.
And let's not to mention the pit stops as they change the tyres. If directors tend to buy upon equity raises, but you've said the intention isn't to raise equity on the ASX, should shareholders be concerned about further raises outside the ASX cross listing?
Look, I was really just being illustrative there that their directors are always cautious about open periods and these things. I think I was more just trying to say that I understand they have an intention to buy, whether they buy on market or whether they're more inclined to take a conservative path and wait for an equity is ultimately their decision. And it's not something I discuss with them each time I see them.
Yeah.
So I respect their space and around that. And I guess I was really just sharing my thoughts to the question without really trying to give any guidance there.
No, thank you very much.
And let me be even more specific. There is currently no plans.
Thank you. Off the back of something you said earlier, where does the resource update sit with the feasibility study timeline? Is that something you can elaborate on?
Well, why don't we just talk to the feasibility study briefly, and then we'll work our way back to the exploration update. So look, the feasibility study from a Greatland perspective, we would have loved that to have been finalised in the December quarter of 2022. That was the stated intent of the Havieron joint venture, stated by both Newcrest and Havieron. I think people understand, for whatever confluence of reasons, Newcrest were not satisfied and decided that they wanted to spend additional time, energy, and effort on that feasibility study, and we are supportive of that to the extent that we think it is sensible to pursue optimizations and improvements. I think it's also sensible to bring in additional resource, and I think I had observed that there was going to be a 13-month lag between the last update to the resource or the drilling cut off of it and the information going to the feasibility study. So we were a little bit, going into a time machine and looking at what it was like back in early 2021. That all said, so I think some extra time to do that is useful. I would have thought, I think there is some commentary around Newcrest targeting the June 2023, but I don't think that's a definitive commitment. But I would have thought you would want to bring in this resource update. Now, you can include a resource update as part of a feasibility study. So there's different ways to achieve it, but you would certainly want to calibrate that information, and that information is presently being worked upon.
That's fair enough. I think they have to include a small amount that's not been previously published as part of their TSX listing. I'm struggling to find the actual document that says that.
So I think, just to clarify that, I think the TSX listing means whilst Australia has there's more flexibility around including resources, my understanding is the TSX is more prescriptive, that really you can only include reserves and a relatively small percentage of material outside of reserves, which is incremental to the mining shapes you within your study, rather than including entire areas of resource. So, different ways to solve the same puzzle between the TSX and the ASX, but Newcrest would seek to have compliance there. So that has always been a limiting factor on Newcrest studies, is that they've always been confined to reserves, notwithstanding that is only a fraction of the overall size of Havieron.
It is. I've closed questions now because I appreciate we are very tight on your time. This one will make you smile. Has our team investigated the nickel at the Eastern Breccia?
Well, we continue to try to understand the base metal environment at Havieron. I think previously I have indicated that in addition to the copper, there are areas where we think there is additional base metal material in meaningful quantities. It is certainly something that the Greatland team is advocating should be advanced. Those other base metals are assayed as part of the drilling program. I think for Newcrest to be comfortable with an announcement around that, you might expect, and perhaps Greatland as well, that they would want to have some understanding of the recoverabilities through a processing, to understand that there is a probability, not a possibility, that it will be economically recoverable. So, we want to continue to understand that and understand the potential for release there, and it's something that we do spend time on.
Thank you. Nice easy one, this one. What is the GGP board rough estimate for first income from Havieron? Are we still on that same timeline?
Well, again, I think that presently it's the feasibility study tells us the pre-feasibility study tells us the answer to that, which you're testing my memory a little bit, but I think that's June 2024. I think the decline advancement that we saw in today's quarterly would give people comfort that we are at least achieving the decline advance rates consistent with that kind of time frame. What I'll probably talk to more confidence on is I think we would be in a position to start stoping in early 24, and I think we've previously talked around that end of the first quarter. I don't think there's any information right now that would suggest that more time is needed.
Thank you. My last question for you from the group chat there. Explaining anomalies is a disciplined approach to exploration. What details can you share, please, to explain the anomaly of the extended FS as we move through 2023 without even a window for guidance? H1. I might need to reread that.
No, I think I got the gist of it. The anomaly is the approach to not giving specific guidance on the release of the feasibility study. Newcrest is the manager of the project. Only the manager can give guidance as to when they will deliver the study. It is certainly the Greatland's preference that a date be clarified and indeed market announced. We continue to advocate for that, but we really respect our joint venture partner, and we work through these kind of issues in a very engaged manner. And we do respect that that sometimes these issues are technically driven, around understanding issues, around understanding anomalies, understanding technical improvements and resource upgrades. So I can understand, or I have some sympathy for, a group being able to say, well, we'll know when we know, or when we solve these things, then we have the building blocks in place. And then once we have those building blocks, we can be definitive about the time frame to release a study. I do have some understanding for that. I think what is different is that Newcrest level of materiality against a business I think has 5 operating mines. I guess they probably are comfortable that they can sustain some additional ambiguity there than what I think is ideal from our perspective. But there are many benefits in entering a joint venture with a global major. The different perspective on materiality of these kind of issues is perhaps the point of difference. But again, I think these differences are at least understood in a framework of positive engagement and technical discussion.
Thank you. And that brings me to the end of my questions. Shaun, thank you so much for joining me and our audience for this quarterly catch up. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Look, just Happy New Year again, Liam. Really appreciate the support and the engagement of everyone who's dialed in for this. So I certainly enjoyed the engagement with you all, and I'll probably be up in London for one of those town hall meetings in I think March, if not before. So looking forward to that, and again, just to say thank you, and hopefully people have enjoyed the initiative you've had with experimenting with the new format, Liam.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of this webcast, ladies and gents. If you want to reach out to us, you can contact us on the Twitter that's on the address below on the screen there. And you should also really subscribe to this channel so that you do not miss any more of these. We hope you enjoyed it, and please do hit that thumbs up button if you did. And we hope to speak to you again soon. My name's Liam, and you've been watching GGP Helps, the board interviews with Shaun Day, Managing Director. Until next time, I bid you all good day.